Um, Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the third week of our series on how to scale your business. And we're looking at strategic assessment of your business. One of the most important things when you're looking to grow your business, even if you're not ready to sell quite yet, is just going back to basics. And risk assessment is one of the areas I find when I work with hundreds of businesses every year that they don't really look at in enough extent. So this is all about looking at issues that might arise in your business or impact on your sales or your team or your customers, and looking at ways to mitigate those risks. So we'll cover the 5 points today. And the first one is about identifying and mitigating key risks. So first, you need to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment. And I'd suggest you do that with some of your key team members. And also, you can ask your customers, your best customers and suppliers, what they think the risks are to your business. So you sit down and have a think about your operations. So, are your operations smooth? Are they effective? Are you actually relying on key suppliers? Is that a risk if you can't get the product that or services that you need from your key suppliers? Are you relying on just one or two customers who, if they take the business elsewhere, would really severely impact on your business? What about your team? Think about your team and anyone who are key to your business. How well protected are they at staying in your business? How happy are they being there? And what can you do to help them to stay? Because you've got to think, how easy are those people to replace? I work with care businesses as an example, and it's quite difficult these days to get care staff. So we always look at how we can make it a really appealing job, offer the best terms and conditions, and continually listen to them and provide answers to their questions. So we're saying risk of losing customers is the issue, and the mitigation is to do staff surveys, to look at their pay and conditions, and to do, you said, we did staff survey every 6 months. The next stage is to categorize the risks. So we've talked about some operational and people risks, but also you need to look at the financial risks. One of the biggest reasons for a financial risk in a business, the small businesses that I work with, is cash flow. So I would always suggest that you ideally have at least 6 months of money in the bank to be able to payroll and pay the costs for your business. If you haven't got that, then it's about putting mitigations in place to try to ensure that you have more cash in the bank to give you that stability for the growth of your business. So best thing to do is to create a spreadsheet, and on the spreadsheet have the risks categorized by financial and operational and people, and then along the top look at how significant those risks are. So if they're really massive risks, put them at 5. If they're not a significant risk, put them at 1. But it's a really good exercise to work through with your team. And then on the next column, you want to go mitigations. So work together as a team to say, how can you reduce those risks? According to the FSB in 2023, the biggest risk with 60% of all small businesses, that's 5.5 million businesses in the UK, citing economic concerns. So is that an issue in your own business? As people are spending less money, your customers are spending less money, the mitigation could be to get more of their business. So if you think that's a concern for your business, then write it down and talk with your team about how you can address that and reduce that risk, and then put a new rating for your risk. So, for example, a small manufacturing firm that I worked with in Sheffield identified supply chain disruptions as a key risk. And that was particularly relevant during lockdown, where a lot of people had a problem with their supply chain. So they mitigated that risk by diversifying suppliers. They found some local suppliers so they weren't relying on everything coming from China, which was taking too long and just wasn't happening. They also were able to put more inventory in, so they weren't relying on the parts not coming through that they needed to create their products. So think about that: products, your services, your people, your operations, and your finance. The next step, which I wanted to cover in your top 5 things to do to mitigate risks in your business, I've covered already, but it's really important to go through this in more detail. Now, this is relevant when you're selling your business. If you if one business is trying to sell and it's got 50 customers that all do about 2% of the sales, versus the same company that has 10 customers with 2 of them doing 40% of the sales, buyers will be more interested in the first one because the risk of a customer leaving isn't going to have a huge impact on the business. So if you are thinking about selling your business, I would definitely look at diversification of your customer base and ensuring that you're not relying on just 1 or 2 customers, and broaden that out a little bit. So in 22, the UK Finance found that over a third, so it's 35% of those 5.5 million companies in the UK rely on just 1 or 2 customers for over half of their revenue. Is that you, and is that the situation in your company? And what can you do to either lock those people in with an agreement, which is a long-term agreement, so that you reduce the risk of them leaving, or potentially just recruit more customers and get them to buy a wider range of your products and services, so that you're not relying on just those 1 or 2 customers. I worked with a digital marketing agency in Bristol, which were doing incredibly well. But then when we looked in more detail at their customer base, they found that 70% of the revenue came from just 1 client. So we worked together, did a marketing campaign, and they broadened their customer base. So ultimately, when they did lose that customer because that customer actually went bust, they didn't go bust. They had so many other customers that they could rely on. So really important to think about your customer. The next thing is your legal and regulatory in compliance. Now, this is so dependent on the type of business you're in. So obviously, if you're in healthcare, a medical business, there's an awful lot of regulatory compliance that you have to go to. And of course, also if you're in accountancy or you're a solicitor, that's exactly the same. It may be a little bit less where depending on the company and the products and services that you sell. But we know that a recent survey by the government showed that most SMEs are concerned about keeping up and understanding government changes, legal changes in terms of the HR and employment law, and they find it really difficult to keep up with the regulatory changes. So what you want to do, and fortunately AI is actually fantastic with this, is you can go in and do Google searches on, if you're concerned, for example, about employment changes and employment law changes, Google employment law changes in 2024, and then you'll have pages and pages and pages of information. You can copy and paste them into AI and say, can you please summarize this in a 2-page document? That gives you an up-to-date view on everything that is relevant to your business that you need to consider for employment law, rather than having to read through 400 pages. You can do the same with regulatory changes by, for example, if it's health and safety, going into health and safety businesses, copy and pasting the stuff and doing a brief summary of it. The alternative you can do, if you've got enough money to do so, is bring somebody into your team as a consultant. You can get HR companies, health and safety companies, regulatory companies that will all, for a small fee a month, be responsible for keeping your policies, your procedures, and your compliance up to date. So it's definitely worth doing that. I worked with a small finance company in Edinburgh. Obviously, the regulation in finance is quite important. So we ensured that they could evidence that they had regular staff training and updated software, which ensured compliance with all the FCA regulations and data protection laws. So if you're not sure what your regulatory requirements are, in your business, put your industry into Google, do the searches, and make sure that you use AI to bring it down to 1 or 2 pages, have a read through, and if there's anything you don't understand, then it's worth seeking a professional, and then you can find the fees from that professional to see whether they can help you on a monthly retainer at a very low rate to keep you current. The fourth out of the 5 things that I suggest that you think about when you're looking at risks to your business is your supply chain variabilities. Now, you can be really vulnerable if you're relying on just one supplier, depending on the type of work you do. Now, if you are a service provider, very often you're relying on IT. So you have to think about your suppliers then being your internet service providers, your safety providers, your online shop providers. If you've got a product instead, then you're looking at people along your supply chain that might, for example, provide components. But supply chain is important for every single business that's out there. The BCC did a survey in 2023, and they saw that 43% of UK SMEs experienced significant supply chain disruptions in the past year. And we've seen that ourselves, haven't we? The number of times in the last year or two where you going to try to buy something with your card and your card's not working, so you have to pay cash or go without your groceries, as an example. I work with a boutique clothing retailer in Manchester. And obviously we're talking about actual product here. They were relying on a Malaysian fabric provider, and it just won as a single overseas provider. So there's so many problems that can happen in the supply chain there. That the ship that they're on breaks down or doesn't come, that they have a fire in their manufacturing facilities over in Malaysia, that the boat is held up, that it's held up at customs. So they wanted to look for alternative local suppliers to mitigate the risk, and they did just that. They found people who were able to print the same fabric in Poland. So they broadened out their supplier base, and they were able to really mitigate that risk so that they didn't have supply chain issues going forward. Well, not so far. The fifth and final one that I wanted to discuss was evaluating cybersecurity and data protection measures. We all know that we see them every couple of weeks, problems with even massive companies that have cybersecurity issues. 39% of small businesses in the UK last year reported cyber attacks in the last year, with the average cost of that being over £4,000 per breach. So you have to have a look at your cybersecurity infrastructure. To me, I'm not an expert on any of that, so I make sure that I've got somebody in my team who is aware of that. If you don't have anyone, it's very worth having a look outside. If you're a small company that's not able to afford that, then there are really good methods that you can look to provide low cost help. And I often use Fiverr. What you need to make sure is if you employ somebody through Fiverr for cyber protection, it's always useful to have somebody who's UK based, and you need to ensure that you go through the right due diligence by looking at who they provided for before, talking directly to those and getting testimonials directly from that. But cybersecurity is becoming an ever increasing issue. So make sure you put that down on your risk database, and make sure that you come up with something that's relevant for mitigation. One of the data protection things can cost 15% of the annual turnover of a business if data protection is breached. It doesn't often happen, but that's the maximum that you can be fined for that. So data security is really important, and there's many providers that you can find by Google search, or by asking friends who've got their own businesses who can provide data protection training. It's really important to do that. I work with an online retail startup in London, and so we decided between us to invest in advanced encryption software regular security audits, and employee training, which help to protect the customer data, which is really important for data breaches, and also prevent cyber attacks. So depending on your business, if your business is online, cyber attacks are much more relevant, but data protection and protecting your customer base is a really important consideration. So those are the 5 things that you need to consider. Make sure that you have your risk register, so a very small Excel spreadsheet that will make sure that every 6 months, you and your team go through and look at your risks from a finance and operations, the people, a customer and a supplier basis. Then you really want to make sure that you're looking at your customer base, not relying too much on one customer. And if you are, make sure that they're tied into a long-term agreement, which is more difficult to break. Look at your legal and compliance and get help in if you need to. Look at your supply chain and make sure that you're protected and you're not likely to suddenly not be able to provide products and services if your supply changes. And finally, as we have here, looking at the data protection and cybersecurity. So just wanted to say we do have a membership group, and it's free to join, the Sales Success Circle. What you can do there is, if you're unsure about any of these areas, we help you through that and through the network to identify and mitigate business risks before they impact on your business or your business sale. And we have lots of tools that are available free of charge in there that will evaluate and improve your customer concentration. So if you're not unclear about your risks and how to assess your risks and how to mitigate your risks, please make sure that you consider joining. Well, thank you for that and for your patience going through the slides. I wondered, have we got any questions today? Okay, got some questions that have come through. Thanks everyone who's provided a question. The first question's really great, actually. It's nice to see somebody who's looking to sell their business. So the specific risks to focus on when preparing to sell your business are the ones that are going to impact on, number one, somebody being interested in buying your business, and 2, the valuation of your business. So we've covered some of them today, but I would say the number one thing is your finances. So you need to make sure, if you're selling your business, that your finances are in good shape. That's making sure that you've got all your profit and loss accounts up to date for the last 3 years. If you haven't, you can just get a hand with it. I often work with companies that have been working on their own for a long time, and you've got things like personal expenses that are coming through the company books, and that's fine to an extent, but it's about how it's put into the profit and loss accounts, because that will be adjusted for on your valuation. So get your finances right. The other one, the big risk when you're selling your business, is that your staff will leave before you sell the business, when they find out that you're selling. So protect your staff by only bringing in a small group that are on a confidentiality agreement, that know about it. Otherwise, people are distracted. They're not going to do their jobs properly. Selling your business is about selling it to the right person and making sure that your staff are looked after. So it's important to worry about your staff, but you don't want to be telling people until you're certain you're selling your business that you are, because it's going to demotivate them. And the third risk is your customers. Most customers will be used to buying after a business is sold to another business. There may be some concerns that if you sell a business, for example, a independent veterinary practice to a big group, that the customers may be concerned that the prices go up quite duly. But the important thing is not having over reliance on one or two customers. That's something that's going to at least half the value of your business when you go to sell it, and make it so much less attractive. If you're thinking about selling your business, that's the third thing I'd look at, is the customer base, and making sure that you broaden that out. I hope that's answered your question. The second question, how far in advance should we start preparing and what are the key milestones? Wow, that's a good question. So if you are thinking about selling your business, the best time to think about selling your business is the day you start it. The second best time is today. You've always got to prepare for your exit. And the best way to do that is I always stop and think about how COVID impacted on my life. And you think about if you suddenly were to get ill or your partner was to get ill and you wanted to step away from the business, is your business ready to step away from tomorrow? So whether you're wanting to sell your business in the next 6 months or you're thinking about potentially selling it in the next 5 years, it's really important to go through these steps and get your business in really good shape, because then it takes away the fear that if you're unable to look after your business tomorrow for any reason, the business will run successfully and it will also be ready to sell. The key milestones, I would say, are making sure that the first one is mentally being prepared. Your business is your baby. Some business owners I've worked with have been nurturing that baby for up to 50 years, and it's a massive emotional and mental block to get over. So I always think it's really good to have a visualization and look at where you want to go afterwards. So you might be selling your business to retire, as about 50% of businesses for sale are wanting to do, or you might simply be fed up of the business, or tired and stressed, or wanting to spend focus on something else. Or you've got a fantastic business, you want to sell it and you want to capitalize on that and maybe go and start another venture. There's lots and lots of different reasons, but you need to be, the key milestone is being absolutely crystal clear on your motivations to sell, because buyers see that. And if you're wanting to sell your business because it's all going wrong, you will get minimal value for it. If you're looking to retire, the buyers may be looking to rely on you to sell a finance, which you may not want to do. So get your head space clear. Why are you wanting to sell your business? What are you looking for from your business, and what is that going to allow you to achieve? And those are the critical things. You then go in and do the step by step of the operations, the finances, the legal, the people, the customers, the suppliers, which are all the areas we'll cover in the next few weeks. Mindset is the most important milestone. I hope that's answered that question. The final question I can see so far, but please add if you have any more, is the proactive steps to increase your business value to potential buyers. Okay, that's a good question, and there's many, many things that you can do. But I think it's really good to use the analogy of a house. So if you were looking for a house that you could move in straight away, so not a doer-upper, think about what the owner of that house would have to do to make that house more desirable. Now, that house is in one location, so you can't change the location, i.e. to be near schools. But what you can do is create your house that you're selling to be somewhere that people can visualize being in, and something they can visualize adding values to, and something that's a low risk. So a buyer wouldn't be interested in buying a house that had a leaky roof. So a buyer of a business won't be interested to buy a business that has got a big issue that they can see. So what you want to do is make sure that you have your business organized so that you have everything you need to put into a data room. The first thing you need to do is have your finances in place. So 3 years of profit and loss, 3 years of cash flow, and 3 years, 3 years of bank accounts as well. It's really and balance sheets. You just need to show that you're steady on there, that you can justify the peaks and troughs in the business, and that's really important. The next one is your contracts. Have you got contracts with your people? Have you got contracts in place with your key suppliers and your key customers, the more that you can show the stability and that things are since things are written down agreements, the more likely your business is to be attractive to more people, which will increase the value. And that's what it's all about. If you have a house that's in a desirable area but looks beautiful, is ready to move into, has all the new appliances, has the garden looking fantastic, you'll have many buyers that will be interested in it. So if you market your property for £1 million, you may sell it for 1.2 million if you've got lots and lots of people who are interested in your house. Exactly the same thing with your business. The more organized you can be, showing that your finances are right, showing that your contracts are in place, showing that you're not relying too much on one customer, and showing that your supply chain is good. Those are the critical things. Your business is only worth as much as somebody is willing to pay for it. So try to reverse that and think about, would you buy a business where none of the customers were under contract? Would you buy a business where one customer was 70% of the sales, and there's a risk of potentially lose them then when you buy the business? So reverse it. Use that to say, would you buy a business, and what would stop you buying your business? And those are the best steps to take in the preparation. I would say we have a 50-stage process to prepare your business for sale, and these are all covered in detail, and you get access to those on the Sales Success Circle membership. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, we will take you through step by step on every single stage that you need to think about. And it's so relevant because normally I find when I work with people and go through this system, you actually fall back in love with your business, and you do so well financially, you don't want to sell it in the end. But it depends on the stage you're at. So those are the answers. I went into quite a lot of detail, and I hope it was useful. Do I have any other questions for anyone? Oh, it's been brilliant seeing you all on the call again today. Thank you very much. If we can stop the recording, and look forward to seeing you next week. That's when we'll be looking at the next stage, which is the value drivers identification. And so it's a follow on really from the last question, is how can we drive a value in your business? So I hope you'll join us next week at midday and have a brilliant weekend. Thanks. Bye.